Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you game 1 in a series between Apollo's AK and Yo Iron Man's Hui here on Neo Planet S. We have Hui spawning as the blue Protoss on the bottom left hand side of the map, meanwhile Apollo's AK spawning on the top right. Now, this is going to be a Zerg versus Protoss PvZ, and I am interested to see what type of openings and what type of game we will be getting from these players. Now, it looks as though Hui is going to be setting up for a Forge Fast expansion, and with that Forge Fast expansion, he should have a decent economic opening. Neo Planet as one of those maps that Zerg players have two options for their third base. There's that 3 o'clock location here, directly to the north or south, depending on your spawning location. And then there is also this 12 o'clock or 6 o'clock location, depending on your location, to the east or west. Now, there are ups and downs to each of those locations. I gotta say that sometimes you just want to try and trick your opponent by building in one location and hope that he doesn't scout it out. So far, Hui looks as though he is going to be going for... is he going for a Nexus first? Yes, he is going to be going for a Nexus first. You can tell by the number of probes he currently has queued up here. He wants to make sure that he doesn't stop any probe production whatsoever, as he is now going to be facing up against a spawning pool first. AK spawning pool first doesn't mean very much unless you actually see the extractor placed down. Without the extractor, those Zerglings are, I wouldn't say useless, but not very helpful in the early stage. And they'll be able to do some scouting, but they cannot do that much harassment, and they cannot trade against Zealots efficiently at all. Coming back around, we are going to be going into that Nexus Forge opening now by Hui, as the Overlord just arrives to the party in time to take a look around here. Now, I gotta apologize, for some reason one of my other replays was not set up properly and there was a little bit of clipping on the frames per second. Hopefully that has been resolved now. There is no lag when I watch the game, so my apologies there if some frames were dropping on some of the older videos. I know that there was a really good series earlier. Now, coming in to take a look, AK now moving out with a set of Zerglings. He is going to be going up against Hui, and what is Hui going to bring forth to the table? You can see a photon cannon here, and this photon cannon should be able to destroy a lot of Zerglings as they try and make their way in. However, there is a probe positioned to try and just delay this for a split second longer, and this may actually work. Let's take a look at this. The photon cannon needs a little bit more time. Photon cannon is now just done, as the Zerglings are going to pull back just in time. Now, I do believe this to be a best of 5 series once more, but since AK is coming from the lower bracket, he is down 1 game already. So Hui sitting on a nice comfortable 1-0 lead in this best of 5. Meanwhile, AK needs to win 3 games out of 4 in order to advance. Coming back around, you are seeing Overlords now making their way into this position here. It looks as though Hui is opening up with that Cybernetics core, still chrono boosting out, but we still don't have a good idea of what Hui is trying to do. Meanwhile, AK is setting up that third base very, very aggressively. Well before the 5-minute or 6-minute mark, this was actually placed down sometime around the 4-minute mark. And if AK can get this game to go long, Hui does stand a very good chance. However, I believe Hui was watching the TESL earlier, or at least his coaches and scouts were, so they perhaps know that AK is going for a very, very fast third base. If it gets scouted out quickly, a 2-base, a Mortal Sentry 2-base all in could be in store. And if it is what we are looking at now, that 2-base Sentry Immortal all-in will absolutely destroy this hatchery here, since it is so tucked and far out of the way. So all we are seeing now is a lot of sentries being trained. You can see Warp Gate tech has been started. There's the timing for an assimilator. An additional assimilator should be placed down, as the 2-gate or the 2-base sentry all-in is very gas intensive because of those sentries and those immortals. Are we going into an Immortal? That is the key point here, as the Overlords are now trying to do a quick fly-in, and AK does not spot this robotics facility. That could be very bad news, as this may be a variation, a robotics facility now training up the Warp Prism. And you gotta remember, the Warp Prism now has the faster movement speed, so it is a much more effective harassment unit, as Protoss now getting a number of different ways to try and execute effective harassment. AK pulling back with this Overlord here. Harvester count is 49 to 43. AK really needs to kick up that drone production and be able to hold off his opponent. Now, one of the benefits for Zerg is that each of these drones can in fact become a spine crawler as long as he has the proper scout. However, Hui moving out with the sentry stalker straight up the middle, and there is no sight at all. And if AK is able, or sorry, if Hui is able to actually warp in along this side here, that could potentially be huge. If he actually tries to drop straight inside, that would be very bad, as there is a queen already in position. There you go. There is the sentry. There's a stalker. There's another sentry, as we are now going in for a warp and almost getting a surround on that queen, as that queen is now trying to back away. That queen does have a little bit of a movement speed advantage, as the queen is now pulling away once more. Drones, however, are getting taken down, as this warp in is dealing tremendous damage already. Alright, it looks as though Hui is in dominant control here. Zealots cleaning up the Zerglings. Do we have a force field on the ramp? No. A little bit of a misstep there, as Hui needed the force field that ramp. We are going into a mothership core and a robotics facility now, as the Observer is now making its way in. Stalkers, sentries, the number of workers killed already almost 20, and it looks like it will be at least 21 workers killed with this very effective Warp Prism play. I can't even call it a drop at this point, as there was only 3 units in that initial drop, and now we have 8 extra Zealots in this attack as well. A new queen about to pop out, but the layer is going to get taken down, and it will soon be 2 bases to 2. Sentries trying to focus this down. There's another good force field, minimizing the surface area on that sentries, and the Zealots are now going to clean this up. I believe AK will be waving the white flag here in just a moment. Broodling's not going to be doing much at all, as AK has been completely reset for all of his tech. AK wasn't prepared for this at all. No Overlord at the 12 o'clock position. Lack of scouting, lack of just not knowing what his opponent was trying to do really cost him the game, as the Zerglings are now trying to make their way in. There you go. The Zerglings are dancing their way forward. Immortals doing a little bit here, but the Hui not placing down a force field at all. So the Zerglings now trying to muster up a bit of a comeback, but with the Zealots and so much, and the Zealots and that warp in, the Zerglings are pretty much going to get cleaned up. Alright, Zealots now finishing off some larvae down here. We can see that more Zealots are coming in here. Hydralisk now joining in on the fight. Hydralisk not beefy enough to really take down the Zealots. Need some roaches to add, and roaches as a little bit of, frontline support, as the Hydralisks are now slithering away. They are going to use that shoot and scoot method to take down all of those Zealots here, but the drones are now acting as that meat shield. AK not one to give up until he knows absolutely for certain that he is going to lose, but it looks as though any professional StarCraft 2 player can pretty much say that AK has lost this game. His harvester count is at 31. Actually, he's not too far behind. He just needs to deal with the army supply difference. 55 compared to 40. AK could still muster something up, but I take it back. Colossus in that group. Hydralisks are just going to get melted in just a second here. Warp Prism there to reinforce. Also, Mothership Core will be able to get in some time warps to make sure that the Hydralisks are not going to get that movement speed advantage. And there is that GG. AK losing game 1 from Hui's very effective Warp Prism harassment. Almost a Warp Prism all in off of 2 bases. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed game 1. Please stay tuned for game 2.